Are these your drugs?
Look, Dad, it's
Where did you get it?
Dad,
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
you, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Parents tell you.
Then you see a pack of Hell's Angels going by, people are going to want to look. Next thing you know, cars. Because they're just staring at us and not paying attention to stop traffic.
If you wanted to break the law on an everyday norm, you should have joined a street gang. That's what they're known for. That's what they do. You're not allowed to steal cars on my block. We steal those cars.
I mean, it was so bad by us in Vegas. I was in the pool swimming, and the guys came back. Hey, Pee-wee, the cops are here. They want to talk to you. I said, well, go talk to them. Find out what they want. And they came back. They go, they want to talk to you.
Typically, if you leave the club, if you haven't been in for 10 years, you're automatically out back.
Got put out in 2006. Back in 2007, wound up going into Cannon. 2011. Came out of there. I had 4.5 years to walk off with zero support from that club.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today we're going to talk about all this wild stuff that's going on. People don't even believe it. They think it's all bullshit, and they think George Christie's a hero, and he never did anything wrong, and he ran Ventura, and he had to talk to the police in order to run his charter, right? That's what people are saying. But I don't think he was supposed to throw members under the bus and give them to the police on a silver platter. Now, there's tapes of George Christie talking to the police and giving people up. You guys think I'm full of shit? Oh, the proof is there. Transcripts are there. The tapes are there. He talked to officers and gave up members. And this isn't like hearsay. It's straight from the person that he cooperated and led to an investigation and was arrested because of what George said. So for all these people that say, oh, that's not true, he's the Grand Poobah, he wouldn't do that, you better take a second look, because it is all true. He knows it's true. And I offer George Christie, I'll give you an opportunity. You could come on here, explain yourself. The option is there. You could come up here. I'm not just going to say things and not give a person for a rebuttal. So the option's there. You can be a guest on this show and we could have a conversation. So before we get started, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell your mother's, brother's, sister's friend about Chatting with Stacks, the dopest motorcycle content on YouTube. I appreciate all you guys taking the time to watch this show. Jogger, thank you for getting a membership. I appreciate it. Craig, how are you? Chef, what's good? Will, how you doing? STMC is in the house. Pepper, good afternoon. Unknown but known is in the house. Thank you for joining me. Warland, how you doing? You're going to show this guy you said you interviewed about corrupt police in Canada? Yes. I'm supposed to interview him tonight, and the interview will drop probably tomorrow or the next day. 100%. I'm going to be interviewing. Road Dog, what's going on? You're one of the people that said you were highly disappointed at what George did. I'm doing great. Things are good. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things that's going on today. Brad, how you doing? It's a chicken bone. So there was a wild situation over in Philadelphia. If you guys aren't aware, a motorcyclist dies after car detaches from a tow truck in Philly. So a car detached from a tow truck. The motorcyclist died after the car detached from a tow truck in the Frankfurt neighborhood of Philadelphia on Saturday night, according to Philadelphia police. The crash occurred at the 4000 block of Frankfurt Avenue around 4:13 p.m. When police arrived at the scene, they found a silver 2005 Dodge Magnum that detached from a tow truck that was traveling southbound and began rolling down the opposite lane, causing a head-on collision with a motorcycle. Crazy. So in an update on Sunday, officials said the motorcyclist involved in the crash was 39-year-old Jason Harvey of Southampton. He was killed in the crash. Harvey was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead at 4:49 p.m. The driver of the tow truck fled the scene, but police said they were able to identify the tow company through surveillance videos. Representatives from the company did come to the scene, but the driver remains wanted by police. Johnny Archer, that the tow truck driver, Pacer told the news that Johnny Archer was the tow truck driver believed to be involved and was found at the 1000 block of East Lyoming Street in Philly. The driver was not found with the vehicle, but the vehicle was found, I believe. The tow truck was found. That's a wild situation. It's like a freak accident. This dude's out riding his Harley. It was a nice day, and boom, a car detaches from a tow truck and plows into him head on. Starts rolling down the street, and boom, hits him head on. So in another situation, there's a bunch of these that have happened recently because it's nice weather. You guys know things are going to happen, right? State police are investigating a fatal motorcycle accident. This is in New York, upstate New York. Fatal motorcycle crash under investigation. According to New York State Police, troopers responded to a collision between a car and a motorcycle on Saturday, February 28th, around 7:40 p.m. on State Route 40 in Scatchcoat. I'm probably butchering that name. The driver of the motorcycle was declared deceased at the scene, and no other injuries were reported. You guys know as it gets nicer, there's going to be more and more of these. Dallas motorcycle officer injured in a hit-and-run crash. This is in Dallas, Texas. A Dallas motorcycle officer was injured in a hit-and-run crash on March 2nd, 2026, after being struck from behind by an unidentified vehicle on North Simmons Highway or Freeway. The incident occurred approximately 12:46 a.m. when officer who was on duty while driving a motor vehicle involving a motor vehicle accident. During the press release from the Dallas Police Department, preliminary investigations indicate that the officer was thrown from his motorcycle after being hit. The second vehicle subsequently collided with the motorcycle. Dallas Fire Rescue responded to the officers, brought him to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The crash serves as a sobering reminder of how quickly a routine call can turn dangerous for the men and women who serve our cities. We are thankful that his injuries are not life-threatening. We are determined to identify the driver. And you know, they always find out who the fuck did it. I mean, there's cameras everywhere. If you guys aren't aware, it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, there's cameras. You're being recorded. So in Boca Raton, Florida, 2 people riding a motorcycle were seriously injured after multiple vehicle crashes in the southbound turnpike west of Boca Raton. Palm Beach County Fire Rescue said at about 5:20 p.m. on Sunday, firefighters responded to multiple vehicle crash near the Glades Road exit in Boca Raton. Officials said the initial reports from several 911 callers were unclear, with some suggesting that the crash might be also extend into northbound lanes. To address the situation, both Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, Broward County Fire Rescue crews responded to the scene. Upon arrival, responders reported finding a crash involving 4 vehicles, including 3 passenger cars and a motorcycle. According to officials, 2 people on a motorcycle were ejected after hitting the median and were classified as trauma alerts, indicating serious injuries. All other people involved in the crash reported no injuries and declined transportation to the hospital. Due to the severity of the motorcycle crash, the Trauma Hawk helicopter was initially launched to assist the patient's care. However, once the trauma patients were stabilized, responders saw the northbound traffic was stopped, allowing a quicker ground transport. Ultimately, patients were transported to the ground units, the Palm Beach County Trauma Center, and the helicopter was canceled. And the Florida Highway Patrol is leading the investigation into the accident. And we're going to see more and more of these as time goes on with the nice weather. So, moving on to, there's a huge article in the paper about alleged biker wars up in Canada. Now, this involves Harley Gwendon and all the people speculating that all this stuff was connected to a biker war. You guys know that 2 teenagers were found that were responsible for trying to light the store on fire. But there has been multiple suspicious fires around this city, and they are talking about them. There's a huge article. It says biker wars, string of suspected arsons, gunfire rocked Ontario community. Brooklyn residents woke up to the smell of smoke early Sunday morning when a house in Pluto Way caught fire. Witnesses say a suspect was spotted just after 4 a.m. entering the home with a gas can. The day before, a vacant home on Pine Avenue in Oshawa caught fire with no injuries reported. These are the latest in a series of suspected arsons and targeted gunfire that have plagued Durham Regional since the calendar turned over, with more than half a dozen such incidents in the last month alone. So there's been more than 6 suspicious fires and gunfire, right? With several linked to factions between rival motorcycle gangs, it says. So somewhere they're coming up with this information that there is some type of link. There are several links to factions between rival motorcycle gangs, it says. So they must have some information that we're not aware of, right? So it says, last Thursday, 2 teenagers were arrested after police say they tried to set fire to Harley G's, a clothing and tattoo shop on Simcoe Street in downtown Oshawa, owned by Harley Gwendon, who has been actively recruiting members for the Reborn Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club founded by his father, Bernie Gwendon, more than 60 years ago. Durham police responded to an armed person call at the shop around 4 a.m. Police said 2 male suspects arrived at the location in a black Honda, approached the storefront. One suspect, using a hammer, broke the front window's glass, while the second suspect attempted to ignite an incendiary device a short time later. Officers located and arrested both suspects near the Ritson Road in King Street. 16-year-old boy from Scugog and a 16-year-old boy from Toronto were both charged with arson, possession of incendiary materials disguised with intent, possession of stolen property. Both suspects are wanted on outstanding warrants with several police services at the time of their arrest. And these kids are only 16 years old. Now, the question is, do you think somebody put them up to this? And if that's true, then that's insane that they would put a 16-year-old kid up to some shit like this, because that's insane. And these kids already had a bunch of warrants for their arrests, allegedly. That's what they're saying. So police came to the same address on February 15th for a fire deemed suspicious, and bullet holes were observed in the front window a few days before. It's unknown if these incidents are related to Thursday's arson attempt. There was also a house explosion in a residential neighborhood in Oshawa on February 21st. The Durham police have not called suspicious, but witnesses reported suspects running from the scene, and they were wanting 2 people allegedly for questioning in that situation. And they were circulating the picture of these people. Police were called to the home near Gibbons Street and Appalachia Avenue just after 10 p.m. to assist fire crews and multiple reports of a home explosion. Officers arrived on scene and found the residents fully engulfed in flames. Officers assisted traffic control as Oshawa extinguished the blaze. No injuries were reported to police, who are hoping that the public can help them solve that case. The next day, a tragic house fire at Cordance Sunday left 1 person dead, though there is no evidence to link these fires in any other incidents. So why would they say earlier in this article that there was biker club and it's related? It says fire crews responded to a residential fire on Nass Road and Verco Road at approximately 10:37 in Durham. Regional Police said after the initial trouble getting into the home because of conditions, firefighters discover 1 person dead inside. On February 3rd, police launched a search for at least 3 people suspected of arson after a home just east of downtown Oshawa, the site of a shooting incident in November, was set ablaze. So this is like, I mean, what the hell is going on in Oshawa? It seems like there's some firebugs out there or some shit. Hey, Carney, what's going on? Thank you for getting a membership. I really appreciate that. STMC, what's good? How you doing? Prez. I appreciate all you guys taking the time to watch this show. Make sure you hit the like button. So it seems like they have a firebug out there. It says, let's see. Police and fire crews were called to a residence near Richmond Street and Ritson Road around 11:30 p.m., arriving to find the main floor home fully engulfed in flames. Firefighters were able to put out the fire. 1 man was evacuated and taken to the hospital with serious non-life-threatening injuries. Police said 3 males were seen leaving the residence and starting the fire before fleeing in a black sedan. Insane. On February 5th, fire crews showed up where a scene of a fire at a shoe repair shop. And I think this is the shoe repair shop right here. On Olive Avenue, just east of downtown Oshawa. The basement of the shop had been linked to gang activity, but police have declined several requests to make any statements on the situation. Gwendon has made no secret of his quest to bring the Satan's Choice back to vengeance or relevance. Quarter century after the most chapters patched over to the Hells Angels. He was also insisted that there is no biker war, just personal dispute between him and 2 other bikers. And I don't believe that those situations are linked at all. But in this article, they're saying that there's a deeper biker war going on and there is links, but there's no proof that any of this shit is linked. But it says right here in this article, right? It says these are the latest series of suspected arsons and targeted gunfire that have plagued Durham region since the calendar turned over, with more than half a dozen such incidents in the last month alone, with several linked to factions between rival motorcycle gangs. So what the hell are they saying there? It doesn't make sense. Is it linked? Troublemaker Travie, what's going on? Thank you for joining me today. Is it linked? I don't think so. Do you guys think it's linked? I highly doubt it. So people are saying that I'm just putting out this information about George Christie because I just want views. That's the case. Yep, I just want views, right? Come on. Listen, hey, George, you're more than welcome to come up here and explain yourself, George. Just like you would not explain yourself to the members of the Hells Angels. That's why you quit the club. You were caught out, and you know you were caught out. And that's why you would not go up and read the transcripts in front of the members. That's why you laid down your patch. It's not because they became what you rebelled against. It's because you talked to the police and you threw a member under the bus and you were caught on tape doing it. And they had your ass pinned to the wall. So you're more than welcome to come up here and explain yourself. And if not, don't tell me I'm on here trying to clout chase for views, because I don't need the fucking views. This isn't my whole entire life, okay? You're light work to me. For real. I'm dead serious. So, speaking of George Christie, so it seems that these, we'll call them ex-club members, right? Some of them aren't 1%ers. Some of them are people like Black Dragon. And now George Christie enters the fray in testifying in court at murder trials for money. That's why they're doing it, for money. They're not doing it for the good of the clubs or any of that shit. They're doing it for money. I guarantee you this dude probably got paid $5 to $10 grand to testify for the defense, right? He testified for the defense. And look what he's saying, right? In this post. I recently testified as a defense expert. Let me ask you a question, George. Did you get paid to testify? I guarantee you didn't do it for free. As an expert in an attempted murder trial, I tore apart the prosecution's theory of what the modern day filthy few patch meant. We all know it doesn't mean the same thing what it used to mean. I mean, we know what it used to mean. It definitely doesn't mean that now. So he tore them apart on what the filthy few patch meant in today's bike culture. I was later threatened with perjury charge. I say bring it on. So why would they threaten you with a perjury charge, George? Not because of what it used to mean. It's because you probably said some bullshit. Now, why would an ex-member that's allegedly in good standing, right? We all know he's not in good standing with that club. But I want him to come on and explain, why did you really leave, George? Why did you really leave? I know why you left. Because they had the transcripts to you talking with the police, and they brung them to the officers' meeting, and they handed you the paper, and they wanted you to read it in front of everybody. And what did you do, George? You threw the fucking paper down and said, I'm not gonna entertain this bullshit, and then you quit the club. Right? That's exactly what you did. We know what you did. So we got another episode coming tonight. There's 8 episodes altogether. If you want to watch the whole thing, go join Patreon. You can see the whole thing. But there's 8 episodes, and you will hear exactly what George did, because Mike Lynch breaks it all down. See, Mike Lynch was a victim of George's, but he ain't staying quiet. He's definitely not gonna just be quiet anymore, because there's a lot of people who have history of that same club, right? But George thinks he knows everything. He thinks he's smarter than everybody. But you know damn well, George, that they got you on this one. 100%. This dude, he's telling 100% truth. There is no lies in what he's saying. You spoke with the police on recorded tapes, and you told on Mike Lynch over a fucking motorcycle. That's what you did. And Mike breaks down the whole situation. He ended up going to prison for the shit that you said to the police. And it launched this big investigation. They ended up raiding Mike Lynch's house. And now he's telling the story on what really happened. You never wanted this information to come out, but it's coming out. And now he's going around just saying that I just want views. That's the reason why I'm doing this these episodes, right? Because I want views. Oh, I think you're funny, George. Let's check out a little bit of this.
You know, this podcast there, and I thought that, I've had the same feeling that he has about things that we're stating on this thing. And, his big deal is that, he's getting paid for all these things,
Yeah.
and that's great. But like I've said from the very beginning, as long as you tell the truth, I don't give a but some of these statements and some of these things that he's putting out there, he's representing that he knows these things for facts, and that, if he didn't know, nobody else would.
Yeah.
And I beg to differ, because I'm on the West Coast. I have personal involvement with that guy in a situation where I sat down for 7 months. Excuse me.
Oh, it was Rod's. You were watching.
It was
Yeah,
mine.
remember that's when I called you and I said, "Hey,
Yeah.
Rod's got something on here that I haven't heard before," and it seems to me he's pretty adamant about what he's saying. And at the end of it, there was no doubt in my mind exactly what he had to say. And that's when I called you and I said, "Hey, so I'm not the only one that feels the same way about some of the things that are being put out that, may or may not involve any of us. But one thing is for sure, anything that I have to say is not hearsay, rumor control, sitting at the bar, doing this or doing that. That's not what this is about. This is exactly, the things that I know or what I went through and the reasons why, and I've kept my mouth shut for 10 years because there's other people involved here. And just like in my case, when I got it, my attorney had called me up and said, "Hey, I just got a bunch of shit from Ventura." And I go, "Well, what do you mean by shit?" He goes, "Well, man, it's a huge box full of discovery." And it was all tape recordings and CDs. Okay. And I says, "What?" He goes, "Well, I got to ask you, do you know somebody named George Christie?" First thing he asked me. And I says, "Well, yeah, he's the head honcho down in Ventura." He goes, "Well, you need to get your to my office. And we need to sit down and you need to hear what is being said and why and in what context." I said, "Okay." So I did just that. I went down there and, it took me 5 days at approximately 8 hours a day to go through all the recordings. And these recordings were made by 2 gang task force officers. They stated during all these recordings that they had some issues in Ventura they were trying to follow up on, and that's what they were doing. And they said, "Hey, we're gonna stop at each guy's house," and he'd identify, "Hey, we're at so and so's house," it's me and Officer so-and-so, and we're going to go in here and we're going to rattle the tree and find out what falls. And that's what they did to each and every person that they interviewed in Ventura. Some were members, some were prospects, some were hang-arounds, and then there was 2 wives that got in there that was mad as.
Let me ask you a question. Did they all talk? Did they all talk?
Yes. Everybody. There wasn't anybody,
including George. You hear me? Everybody talked, including George.
One of the prospects, kind of after he seen where it was going, he just put a kibosh to it. You know, said, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable. That's it." But let's say 10 or 12 more individuals, regardless of what their relationship was a club. You know, I didn't know which guy was a hanger. I don't know these guys' names. I just know what is in these recordings and why they're going to each one of these guys to get a statement. And no doubt, there was no doubt at any time that this was an ongoing investigation. You know, they say it point blank. We're checking this out. We're checking that out. We want to know this, that. And I think the longest it took during those tapes was about 20 minutes before they just started, you know, and that's how suddenly I got drugged into it. I got drugged into a thing that they're actually in Ventura to work out. My name wasn't in none of the paperwork. My name was in nothing until after the investigation, and these guys went in there and they said, "Oh boy." And that's when they came to me.
So when do you hear your name, and who brings up your name first?
Well, they're talking to like hang-arounds and prospects. And I don't know these guys, but they were saying stuff like Big Homie in Fresno, this guy Mike. They didn't know me from Adam, but they know what they were told by the powers that be. And then when it started hitting the fan and bikes started getting confiscated and this investigation started.
Mike has no reason to lie. He was a president of a charter. He was the West Coast treasurer. So why on earth, right? After all this time, would he just throw George under the bus for no reason? Think about that. And George is saying, I'm just desperate for views and I'm mad that he wouldn't come on my show. We can go on your show, George, and do it, and you could get all the views. How about that? The option's there, George. I really would like a response. We can go on your show and do it, and you can explain yourself, okay?
There was a lot to it, not just, I was a small part, but that came out in the end. Once they started investigating all that at the very end of the investigation, then all of a sudden this comes up. And then when I go sit with my attorney, then I found out why. Little George had gotten stopped on a bike that I traded stuff with another member of that charter. That member sold Georgie the bike, and then Georgie had problems with it. You know, I don't know, from the time that I did a transaction with any of them guys, I mean, I want to say 6-7 months had passed, you know? So I don't know why I'm responsible for something that's been old news to me. And I was reassured by the charter, yeah, you know, nothing, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I says, well, fine. And then it got bad about the information that the gang guys were receiving.
So what did you hear when George was on the tapes, right? Did he bring you up, or did the police bring you up?
They set him up. Well, actually, they set up everybody that was on there, because they would chit chat and go, let's go in there. And he goes, let's see how fast it's going to take to, you know, and let's get a response and see where we're going. I remember a couple of the messages or the statements they made. They approached George and they says, well, what are you going to do about it? Because you know already you told us who stole the bike. That's how they came out at him. Well, you already told us who stole the bike. And then they go, well, what are you going to do about it? You know, that guy just stole a bike, put a plate on it, and then sold it to you people. I said, well, number one is there's another statement that never occurred. I never sold nothing to anybody. One of the guys came down, they wanted one of my bikes. They called me a week later, said, hey, we'll trade you this for that. You know, and I said, okay, you know, whatever. Because I'm in the business of doing that, and I buy, sell, fix them up, dump them. I don't care. You know, if there's money in it to be made for me, yeah, I'm in it. That's what I do. I'm a hustler, you know. But they told George, you know, they went and said, well, what is it that you're going to do about it? And George replied to him. He goes, well, if we find out that in fact is the truth, then he's going to have a real problem on his hands. You know, and I'm sitting here going, now, and I've said this before, all of us that came around the club, it was already basically known or understood that we weren't naive as far as working in the underworld, kind of straddling that line, if you will. You know, we had seen it, heard it, we had some experience. So basically all of us had the basics down. We know when to shut the fuck up. You know, do you talk to cops? No. I've probably known that since I was 13 years old. Why do I need a Hell's Angel or anybody else to tell me, hey, you got to keep your mouth shut? Come on, man. You know, so if I know that's part of what we do and how we carry ourselves, why don't the people down there? You know, and in my case, I had something to say like, why is there 1 minute of any tape recording from anybody that's in our thing? I said, I find that hard to believe. I said, could you guys go through there and dig all through all them tapes and all that and find one that I did?
So you're not on one tape, not one tape.
None. Never.
So it's all these.
But I'm in a court case, though.
Yeah,
I'm in a court case.
No, who else got arrested with you when this hit the fan? Who else got arrested?
No, for what they were inquiring about. And when they started bringing up missing motorcycles and this and that, everybody down there, you know, I don't know nothing. I heard about this guy or that, you know what I mean? And I just went, what the you know, and they all had something to say. They either hid a bike or were told to hide a bike. Bike had nothing to do with me. It was something to do with George's old bike, you know, and they were looking for that too. Well, in between all that, this bike that I traded off 7 or 8 months before that, it came up in conversation. But when they found out there was a problem, then everybody just started, the information started going towards me, and they were all saving, in my opinion, they were saving their own about being drug into an investigation where a court case might start, you know?
Yeah. You think possibly that George talked to these people on his own? And
well, funny you mentioned that. Okay, during one of the raids down there, they went to, you know, motorcycle shops, they went to George's, but I think that George was arrested for a substance. Okay. So after they got done in Ventura's, when they came to my house, they destroyed it. That's those guys that were pissing on all over my bed and all over my floors and all over my shower. That's what happened after they left Ventura and came to my house. And these guys, knocking holes in the walls. And they were telling me the reason they did that was to look for contraband. Yeah. Okay, who told you that I had contraband? Because they didn't find any. And I was never charged with a crime in Ventura. What they did was Ventura cops called San Luis Obispo and said, this is your baby. He's got a couple of suspicious parts in here, so now it's on you. So Ventura never prosecuted me for nothing. Now, the day after George was arrested, they got him on one of the recordings, a phone tap on this one. They had a phone tap at his house, so he called them up. He called up the detectives at the gang task force, called them up. Hey, what's up, dog? All that. I don't know what transpired, but I don't talk to them guys. It's just hard. This one was trying to do shit to me, and you want me to be nice to him. And if some people are under the impression that if I be polite and I do this, I'm going to get on my bike and go home. Okay, well, I hate to tell you guys that. I don't know what kind of criminal you guys have ever been, but that just, we have nothing to say. Well, anyway, he's on this tape asking them, hey, man, can't we work something out?
Part 2 drops tonight. And if you want to see more, join the membership and you'll be able to see it. Now, this offer's for George. You see, I'm doing this just for views, George. So we'll go on your show and you can get the views, okay? So let me know when you're ready, George. And we'll set it up and we'll do it on your show. And then you can explain yourself. I would love to see that. You know what it is. So if you guys like the show, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell your mother's brother's sister's friend about Chatting with Stacks, the dopest motorcycle content on YouTube. I appreciate all you guys. And remember, don't be a George.
And all new at 5, a major organized crime bust. 23 people under arrest now accused of stealing guns and cash.
Today, police revealed 4 organized crime groups are wreaking havoc.
From aggravated robbery to kidnapping, burglary, and more. Let's take a look at this. New pictures from court documents in this case. These are a few of the people who have been charged. And investigators say the money, tens of thousands of dollars, is all stolen.